So have you ever felt that pull towards an old abandoned place? That quiet sense of stepping back in time, maybe wondering about the lives lived within those crumbling walls? There's definitely a captivating allure to these forgotten spaces, isn't there? A whisper of stories from a bygone era. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something really unique, the ghost towns of the American West. But we're not just, exploring their spooky ruins. Our mission is to really unpack their incredible historical significance, uncover the surprising, sometimes brutal, reasons behind their sudden boom and equally sudden bust, and also trace their lasting, kind of unexpected legacy on our modern world. We'll even arm you with the knowledge to explore them safely and respectfully if you ever get the chance. We've pulled from a really rich stack of sources for this, everything from historical travel guides, detailed academic research, to personal accounts and the details of preservation efforts. You're about to see how these sites are far, far more than just abandoned structures.
Yeah, and one striking aspect really is just how quickly they materialized.
Oh.
Almost overnight, it seems, across the Western landscape. The primary engine behind that lightning-fast appearance, as our research clearly shows, was undeniably the lure of a big strike. Gold, silver. It truly embodied that pioneering spirit of the 1800s.
And what a Wild West it really was. We all know the iconic image of the California Gold Rush, 1848, James W. Marshall's discovery at Sutter's Mill. He was building a lumber mill, right? But what's truly fascinating, and I think often overlooked, is that John Sutter himself was actually dismayed by it. He apparently wanted to keep it quiet, fearing it would wreck his agricultural plans.
You can't keep a secret like that for long, can you? Rumors spread like wildfire. And then San Francisco newspaper publisher and merchant Samuel Brannan, he confirmed it. Famously strode through the streets holding up a vial of gold, shouting, "Gold! Gold from the American River!"
Mm.
That was really the clarion call that set everything in motion.
And talk about a stampede. People who soon became known as the 49ers poured in from literally around the world. San Francisco's population just exploded from maybe, 1,000 residents in 1848 to a staggering 25,000 by 1850. Can you even imagine the chaos, the noise, the sheer desperation and excitement?
It's an unbelievable transformation.
Yeah.
And the economic impact, immediate and profound. By 1850, an astonishing 60% of the entire American West's workforce was employed in mining. This wasn't just an industry, it was the industry, fundamentally reshaping demographics, laying the groundwork for how the West would develop, even long after the gold was gone. 40% of the population lived within 5 miles of a mining site. We see examples like Rhyolite, Nevada, that once boasted over 10,000 residents, or South Pass City and Atlantic City up in Wyoming, each had around 2,000 miners. That's an incredible concentration of, well, human ambition converging on very specific spots.
That image of the lone prospector with a pickaxe is so ingrained in our minds. But with literally thousands of people pouring into these remote areas, how did any semblance of order even begin to take hold? I mean, how did they manage to create functioning societies out of what must have seemed like pure chaos?
Well, in the midst of that chaos, something fascinating happened. Mining districts started to emerge. You have to imagine pioneers essentially creating their own mini-governments almost overnight, not just to keep the peace, but specifically to lay down the law for who owned which mining claim, what property rights were. They actually elected their own officials, presidents, judges, and even set rules for common resources like water and timber. A prime example is the Comstock Lode in Nevada. Because of this institutional order, its local population just skyrocketed from maybe 100 to 20,000 people between 1859 and 1861. And this also marked a really crucial shift from placer mining, someone with a simple pan sifting for gold flakes in a river, to much more complex deep mining. And that wasn't just dirty work. It required heavy machinery, massive capital investment, and a truly centralized industry. It transformed the whole operation from individual dreamers to, well, industrial giants.
Okay, so we've painted this vivid picture of rapid growth, people rushing in, towns appearing almost out of nowhere. But here's the other side of that coin. Just as quickly, many of them vanished, almost as if they were swallowed by the very land they tried to conquer. What were the forces behind such dramatic disappearances?
Yeah, you're seeing the classic boom and bust cycle right there. It's textbook. Once the easily accessible minerals were depleted, or maybe the initial allure of mining just couldn't compete with other opportunities opening up, these towns simply couldn't sustain themselves. And nationally, the American economy was shifting away from mining anyway. By 1940, mining employment had fallen to less than 5% of the workforce. Agriculture, cattle ranching, these quickly surpassed mining in economic importance across the West.
Right. Right. It makes perfect sense that towns so heavily dependent on a single finite resource would ultimately struggle. Our sources really highlight that the towns that ended up as ghost towns were often smaller, more isolated from markets, and more dependent on mining than those that survived. And transportation that often seems like the ultimate make or break factor, doesn't it? Lack of railroad access was a major contributor to their demise, while towns that got good initial rail access actually had a much better chance of surviving adapting.
Absolutely. And geographical disadvantages played a significant role, too. Many of these towns were just at higher elevations or simply too difficult to access consistently. That becomes unsustainable without the promise of a quick fortune. And sometimes it wasn't even a gradual decline at all. Some towns were lost incredibly quickly due to catastrophic events. San Marcial, New Mexico, for instance, it was completely destroyed by a flood in 1929. There's really not much left of the original town. Similarly, Kerwin, Wyoming, began deteriorating after a massive snowstorm caused an avalanche back in 1907. Tragically killed 3 people. That was sort of the beginning of the end for Kerwin.
Wow. Despite the disappearance, though, these ghost towns aren't all the same. They really do each tell a unique story. And surprisingly, many of them are still around to visit today, in some form or another. So beyond just the gold and silver, what kind of distinct histories do these places reveal?
That's a great point. And if we look at the different categories, mining towns are probably the most common, sure, but they have their own fascinating variations. Take South Pass City, Wyoming. It was a classic gold boom town in the late 1860s. Now it's a state historical site with over 20 authentically restored structures. It's pretty amazing. You can even try your hand at gold panning in Willow Creek, or grab a sarsaparilla at the old Smith Sherlock General Store. Get a real taste of that era.
Oh, cool. And right nearby, I think, is Atlantic City, Wyoming. Similar story. That one sounds like it was maybe a bit more lively. A short-lived boomtown, but sources mention it had more leisure options, a brewery, a dance hall, even an opera house for its miners. The Atlantic City Mercantile there is apparently on the National Register of Historic Places, still standing. Then there's Kerwin, Wyoming. You mentioned the avalanche. That sounds like an intriguing abandoned place, not just for its mining history, but also, famously, for the uncompleted cabin of Amelia Earhart. She was having it built there when she disappeared during her flight in 1937. Adds another layer of mystery, doesn't it?
It really does. And for a truly stark visual, Rhyolite, Nevada is often called the Ghost City. It's quite something. It's famous for its unique bottle house, literally constructed from, 50,000 old barroom bottles, and you can still see the eerie ruins of a 3-story bank, a jail, a train depot. Pretty impressive ruins. Then in New Mexico, you have Kelly. It was a silver, lead, and zinc mining town. Once had maybe 1,500, 2,000 residents. What's truly remarkable there is that its Juan Bautista Church is still active today. They hold an annual fiesta, bringing former residents and their descendants back. It's a tangible link, to a community that refused to entirely disappear.
That's incredible. So we've seen these mining towns that boomed and busted. But what other kinds of economic engines created these transient settlements? Beyond mining, railroads obviously played a huge role too, creating their own cycles. Piedmont, Wyoming, for instance, that was a Union Pacific Railroad resource town settled in 1867, known for its massive charcoal kilns built by a Moses Burn in 1877. They produced what, up to 100,000 bushels of charcoal each month just to fuel the locomotives. And then there's Kane, Wyoming. That was a pivotal railroad shipping stop, but it was condemned and flooded in 1967 because of the Yellowtail Dam construction. Today, kind of hauntingly, you can still see bridge pillars and even a cemetery underwater, a whole town swallowed by progress.
Yeah, quite the image. And Point of Rock Stage Station in Wyoming, it's not a ghost town in the traditional sense maybe, but it's historically significant. It's the only fully intact station on the Overland Trail, built way back in 1862. Offers a fascinating glimpse into pioneer history. There are even fenced grave sites nearby, a stark reminder of the hardships faced by those travelers.
And we also find agricultural and ranching settlements that became ghost towns, like Riley, or originally Santa Rita, in New Mexico. Settled in 1882 for farming and ranching, known for pinto beans, peaches, pears. But it declined when the water table dried up in the 1930s, and then many men left for World War II, which further depleted the population. But its old church, built in the 1880s, is apparently still kept in pristine condition for an annual reunion fiesta, another place where that community spirit endures.
Right, and then you have towns that have been specifically preserved or even relocated. They offer different insights into how we connect with this history. Bodie, California is often called California's biggest ghost town. It's preserved in a state of arrested decay, been a state historic park since 1962. What that means is they basically stop time. They stabilize buildings but allow nature to kind of reclaim things naturally. Gives it this incredible bullet-holed Wild West feel. It even has this legend of a curse for anyone who steals from it. Apparently, park rangers can even show you letters from regretful tourists who tested the legend. Quite the deterrent.
Huh. That's actually pretty clever for stopping souvenir hunters. Huh? And then there's Calico, California. That's a restored Silver Rush town. Also has a reputation for supernatural activity. This one was literally brought back from the dead, wasn't it? By Walter Knott in the 1950s. Renovated into more of a tourist hotspot with a mix of original buildings and replicas, like the Mystery Shack. A very different approach to preservation than Body. More about recreating an experience.
Exactly, different philosophies. Berlin, Nevada offers another take. It's considered the best preserved mining town in Nevada. It's been a state park since 1955, also maintained in arrested decay. It features a huge 30-stamp mill and other structures, and is part of the larger Berlin Ichthyosaur State Historic Park, which is fascinating, blends human history with, well, giant prehistoric marine reptiles found nearby. And maybe the most unique case is Silver City, California. It's actually a collection of buildings transported all in one location from various smaller mining areas specifically for preservation. So it's essentially a town curated and moved to ensure its survival.
As we've uncovered all these different types of ghost towns, it becomes clearer, doesn't it, that these really are more than just abandoned buildings. What's striking is how these towns, even in their ruin, seem to cast such a long shadow on the American West today.
That's a crucial point. It really ties everything together. It highlights a concept called path dependence. Basically, how historical mining activity still profoundly influences modern population distribution. It's quite remarkable. Back in the 19th century, obviously, the largest towns were closest to mining sites, often within just a few miles. Makes sense? However, if you look at the map today, the largest cities and the highest population densities are often found approximately 35 miles away from those historical mining sites, which suggests this fascinating shift towards nearby commercial and transportation hubs that were maybe initially secondary.
But it's not quite as simple as people just moving on and forgetting these places, is it? The influence isn't just about the current biggest cities. Areas within that 35-mile radius of historical mining sites are still significantly more populous and dense today than areas further out. So there's a definite lingering effect.
Precisely. And this persistence seems to happen through a couple of channels, according to the research. Areas closest to the mines, say within 15 miles, often had an oversupply of housing left over from their boom days that people could simply move into later. Cheaper housing stock, basically. And then areas slightly farther away, maybe 15 to 35 miles, developed better amenities over time. This is due to what economists call agglomeration economies. It's a bit jargony, but it just means when enough people and businesses gather in one spot, they start to attract more, creating a powerful economic flywheel. Initial infrastructure investments and larger populations in those nearby hubs help spur their long-run survival and growth.
Okay, so while mining drove that initial explosive growth, the American West's economy ultimately diversified retail, services, manufacturing. And that led to the sustained growth of the areas that could adapt and leverage those initial foundational investments, even if they weren't right on top of the mines themselves. It's a complex and really enduring legacy.
Indeed it is. It's all about how those initial shocks, like the gold rushes, set a course, a path, that continues to shape our urban landscapes today, even if the original reason, the gold, is long gone.
And this enduring impact means that ghost towns are more than just, historical footnotes. They're actually popular tourist destinations today. They offer a rare glimpse into this bygone era. You can find all sorts of Wild West-themed activities, mine tours, museums, historical reenactments. You mentioned Panning for Gold in South Pass City. They even have a Gold Rush Days festival there. And the interest is clearly still booming today. You see it in online forums, places like Reddit, where people are keenly discussing how to explore these places responsibly.
Yeah, and that interest, thankfully, fuels crucial preservation efforts.
Yeah.
We talked about the arrested decay model of Body versus the active restoration seen in Calico, thanks to Walter Knott's work. It's also worth highlighting the work of organizations like the Ghost Town Club of Colorado. They're a nonprofit entirely dedicated to the preservation and maintenance of ghost towns. They use a preservation fund. Apparently, 100% of donations go directly to qualified projects, and they mobilize volunteer efforts for sites like the Genoa Tower or the Santiago Mill. It's really vital work.
That's incredible dedication. Makes you wonder, what are some of the biggest challenges they face, trying to save places that nature itself seems determined to reclaim? But anyway, for anyone listening who's now maybe inspired to visit one of these places, it's absolutely critical we talk about safety and ethical guidelines. These places are old, they're remote.
Absolutely. Safety is paramount. You have to remember, many ghost towns have abandoned mines and shafts that aren't clearly marked or closed properly,
Mm.
and they're inherently dangerous. The number one advice is simple. Do not enter mine shafts, period. You also need to be really aware of environmental hazards, things like rattlers hiding in caves under boards and debris, especially in warmer months. Be watchful where you step, and remember how remote many sites are. That often means unreliable cell phone coverage, maybe none at all. Flash flooding in arroyos or washes during thunderstorms is a very real risk too. So always notify someone of your travel plans before you head out, where you're going, when you expect to be back. And lastly, just be aware that old buildings can be structurally unstable. Admire them, take pictures, but maybe from a safe distance.
Good advice. And it's not just about physical safety, right? It's also about respecting the sites themselves, ensuring they remain for future generations to see.
Exactly. We really need to stress the leave no trace principles. The mantra is, take only photos, leave only footprints. This also means respecting private property. You might encounter areas that are private, even within a ghost town. If you go through a cattle gate, close it behind you, and refrain from using firearms near these sites. And remember that body curse legend we mentioned. It serves as both a cultural reminder and, frankly, a practical deterrent against theft. These places are treasures, true historical records, and they need to be preserved for everyone to experience their stories.
Well, what a journey. A really fascinating deep dive through the history of the American West's ghost towns, from that initial gold fever that spawned literally thousands of settlements to the often harsh realities that led to their abandonment. We've seen how these places are really tangible links to a complex past rapid growth, sudden decline, but also this enduring influence.
And that's really the provocative thought we hope to leave you with. These sites are so much more than just abandoned buildings. They are, in a very real sense, living laboratories of economic history, human ambition, and resilience. They challenge us to consider how those initial shocks or developments, like the gold rushes we talked about, can create that path dependence that continues to shape our modern urban landscapes and population distribution even today. So maybe as you go about your day, you'll start to consider what ghosts of past industries or decisions or events might still be influencing your own communities or regions today. Food for thought.